Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Menachem Creditor. It's my honor to serve as scholar in residence and rabbi for UJA Federation of New York. We bring you Torah and music, blessing, and community every weekday. We've been doing so since March 18th, 2020. Today it is Monday, April 27th, 2026. What a gift to find all of us continuing to learn more than 6 years later. Scott and David, Tara and Neil. So good to see all of you. I hope that you and yours are safe and well. Let's take a second, we'll say good morning, and we'll start learning some Torah. Yoram! Gewalt. That is the way to say good morning, my friend. Thank you for being Torah family. I'm so happy that you're the first face on my Facebook feed. Linda and Barry, Cecile and Jack, Jerry and Penny, Boker Tov. Hi, Jonathan. Hi, Kate. It's broadcast 1535. Thanks, Penny. Arlene, good to see you. Lydia and Ron, Boker Tov, everybody. Patricia, hope you are well. Let's take a breath. We're going to sing a bracha, learn some Torah. Here we go. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see all of you. There's a lot to talk about today. It's Parshat Emor. But before I get to the Parsha, I want to dedicate today's Torah learning to the memory of a dear friend of ours, Matan Kach, Zichrono Livracha. Some of you, I hope, had the pleasure of knowing him, had the profound experience of hearing him teach. Matan was in a wheelchair most of his life, all of his life. Was born premature, struggled against physical, what would be described as physical limitations, except he transcended them so intensely. He once was visiting here in Westchester County, a shul, and in the middle of Shabbat, his wheelchair ceased working. The battery wouldn't be connected. I was lucky to be his friend, and I was privileged to be present with him when that happened. And so I sat with him for hours trying to figure out how to make the wheelchair work, and in the end, helping him coordinate that a new wheelchair would be brought and he would have what he needed. And I have to say, not for one moment did his attitude turn to negativity. I'm sure inside he was having all sorts of feelings. But Matan, besides having this indefatigable positivity, also managed to make sure that he modeled that for others, including anyone struggling with what would be described as a disability. Matan was part of the Ikar synagogue community in LA and a part of so many people's hearts. If you'd like to learn from a giant, if you'd like to see some of who he was, look him up. His beautiful face, his smile, his heart. And so, We are deeply sad that he died. His family is so important to us. If you are friendly with any of his siblings or his extended family, please make sure to reach out. This is a hard week, and Matan's beauty is something we will sorely miss. There is a lot to talk about also with this week's Parsha, so let me get right into it. The beginning of Parshat Emor describes how the priests who we have been focused on because of the book of Vayikra, the book of Leviticus, the priests are told how to live a holy life and to be specifically in tune with the service they're called to perform, the avodah. And because of the intensity of that service and the intimacy with the divine, the rules are very strict when it comes to contact with the dead. It could be said, as many scholars have suggested, that God is the source of life, and it wouldn't hurt God to have proximity with death if God is present. And we learn, at least in the Midrash, that God buries Moshe. God is present in these losses. It's not that God can't handle it, but the sacred is meant to be an affirmation of life, and we do not bring death into it. That's why after contact with the dead, there's an ornate ritual that priests go through in order to be recalibrated to connect with the source of life, with the divine. And that is why, if you've ever served on a Chevra Kadisha, taking care of our loved ones after they die, preparing them for burial, you know that there's an elaborate exit, the rituals after you're done. They don't technically change your status from having been in proximity with a body, but they do remind us to return to the living. This week, we read that the priests may not come into contact with anyone who has died, except their family. Now, you might know people who are the descendants of priests who are cautious with these rules. I remember when my dear friend, John Gallinson, Zichrono Livracha, died in Berkeley, California. We had a mutual friend who wanted to be present, but for the funeral he felt he could not be. He was a Kohen, so what could he do? And interesting, I said, you can stand right outside the sanctuary on the outside wall. It was in Berkeley, the weather wasn't so bad. And the challenge there on a technical level was that the roof had an overhang, had an awning. And according to Jewish law, if you are under the same physical structure, you're implicated in what is present in that structure. That should teach us a lot about how to build a home and to know we are never immune or separate from what happens in our home. But the technical lesson here was that my friend couldn't be physically present except from a distance. And the exception to the rule is important for us to understand in its context too. Because the priest may not go near a dead body, but if it is one of their intimate relatives, parents, child, spouse, sibling, they can and they must. And isn't that interesting to think about? Two competing priorities. For the sake of the community, the priest may not come into contact with the dead, but because of what family means, the obligation to tend to family, they must. The prioritization of personal grieving and the mitzvah of taking care of our family members overrides the communal need for this priest to be able to officiate. I don't have a larger message than that. Isn't it interesting then for us to consider what it is to see our religious leaders balancing that balance too, what the community needs and what I'm called to do? I remember when I was serving as a pulpit rabbi, facing this challenge in a consistent way. My children needed me, I was going to do homework with them or make dinner, and there's a shiva. And you can't reschedule the shiva. What do you do in these moments? And so, for a million reasons I wanted to point to this, one of them is, I hope that you will read this parsha, this beginning of it, and if you have a relationship with someone who serves as clergy in your community, you'll say to them, I never thought, or maybe I haven't said in a while. I appreciate so much the balancing act that you do on behalf of our community, because it's hard to keep all those obligations and fulfill them. You often, when you serve as clergy, cannot do it all. And it is very important, I say this as a child of a rabbi, not just as a rabbi with my own children. It is important for us to understand that the Torah models what it is to prioritize family, too. I'll give you a vignette, and with this I'll close. Rabbi Harold Kushner of blessed memory, author of When Bad Things Happen to Good People, a pulpit rabbi for many years in Natick, Massachusetts, and a dear mentor and friend. He said this very interesting thing at a talk that I attended once with him. He said, I can't tell you the number of times that I ran from my family's dinner table to go tell parents to spend more time with their children. And in that, friends, in that is the tension in this week's Parsha. I give us this blessing. I really do. I give us the blessing of knowing that priorities sometimes collide, and it is up to us to navigate them in sometimes complicated ways, ways that do not allow for every obligation to be fulfilled, and to balance that as best we can, to understand that we do the best we can to maximize our time and prioritize the relationships that we are called to, that we are obligated by. It is a beautiful, beautiful mess of obligations because it's all holy. It's all holy. I'll leave you with one more thing. This is one of my favorite lines from Abraham Joshua Heschel. Abraham Joshua Heschel has many, many important teachings. One of the quotes that I love the most is that happiness is the certainty of being needed. And I remember feeling this to my core. It actually speaks to these obligations. Happiness is the certainty of being needed, of being necessary. And yes, we each are. It's not just a truth about clergy. We are each needed to make this world as it should be, to tend to our relationships, to make new friendships, to take good care of ourselves. We are obligated to take care of each other in moments of need and to tend to each other when we die. I remember sharing this quote with my wife when we were dating. And I said, I love this quote by Heschel. Happiness is the certainty of being necessary. And Neshama, in her deep wisdom, said, it is a beautiful quote, and it is deep happiness. But if misunderstood, it is also the definition of codependence. Because among the challenges here, in our Parsha, and in our world, is the recognition that if all I think about are the obligations that pull me beyond the self, if I'm a priest, to do the service, or to bury my family member, or as a clergy member, to take care of my kids, or to take care of my community, where is the self? This is ultimately one of the more elusive parts of being a caregiver of any kind. It is often the truth that caregivers take care of others much better than they take care of themselves. And so, deepest of all, and perhaps least connected to the Torah portion, I wanted to give all of us who have served as caregivers this very, very important reminder. And I include myself in this. You matter. Some of the holy service you are called to render is toward yourself. Take a walk. Eat good food. Experience life. Make sure that you are tending to yourself so that you can then, as all of us do, balance between this very, very complicated tug-of-war of obligations. What a gift it is to be in relationship and to have these obligations. Let's also remember that we are obligated to ourselves and to others and to other others. What a gift it is to be human, and how hard it is to think through how to tend to all three of those dimensions. We're in it together as a community. I wish us strength and wisdom as we move forward through them. Let's send our hearts to the east and sing. Kol od balevav pnima nefesh Yehudi homiya ulefatei mizrach kadima ayin letzion tzofia od lo avda tikvateinu התקווה בת שנות 2000 להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים. Am Yisrael Chai. See you tomorrow, my friends.